right, Lucia, let's start off with part one. So we're going to start off by talking about your work. So do you work or do you study?
Well, I'm working as a doctor here in Florence, that is in the center of Italy. I'm a plastic surgeon, actually, and I got my specialization last year.
Hmm. What do you like about that job?
I like to care for people. I like uh, to be helpful and to provide the service for people that need one. Yeah.
Mhm. Would you like to do that job in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. I've studied so hard, so long, so I will definitely choose this job.
Mhm. And when you were growing up, did you want to do this job when you were a little girl?
No, actually, I wasn't sure to become a doctor, but yes, as I was growing up, I was always more interested in biology, the human body, and all different medical conditions. So it was because of that that I chose the medical school.
Hmm. And let's now talk about your home. Where do you live?
At the moment, I'm living in Prato, that is my hometown, and I'm here with my parents. But I wish to move mm, to a house of my own soon. Yeah,
And do you live in a house or an apartment?
it is a house, a detached house. I have a small garden. It is a two-story building, and yes, we have a small garage. Yeah.
And can you describe the surrounding area?
My neighborhood is quite calm actually because it is a residential area, so there are some other houses like mine, and there is a cafe and some other shops, but it's not very crowded.
Mhm. And are there any big cities close to where you live?
Yes, the main big city that is it is here near is Florence, that is just 20 minutes far away by car, and it's the capital of the region. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay. Now let's talk about mobile phones. How often do you use your mobile phone?
Well, quite often actually, because I use it for work also. So I'm always paying attention to messages from my colleagues, and sometimes also patients call me uh, night and day. So yeah, I pay a lot of that attention to my phone. Yeah, and I'm using it a lot.
When you receive a message on your phone, do you normally reply right away?
I try actually, but I can't do that all the time because sometimes I'm really busy. So yeah, I have to reply later. Yeah, but I tend to reply immediately if I can.
Mhm. And are you happy to receive advertisements on your mobile phone?
No, definitely not, because it's really annoying. You know, yes, I'm working all the time, and these adverts uh, are distracting me. Yeah.
Mhm. Good. So that's the end of part one. And what we'll do now is move on to part two. So, what I'm going to do is show you a cue card. I'll share it with you on the screen, and you'll have 1 minute to prepare your answer. And then I will let you know when the 1 minute is up, and you should then speak for up to 2 minutes. Does that sound okay? Okay. Can you speak for up to 2 minutes? Would you like me to leave this up on the screen for you?
Yes, it's okay.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. I'd like to talk about a journey that I do every day to go to work. I live in Prato, but I'm working in Florence at the hospital, at the main hospital of Florence. So I have to do this. I have to make this journey every day, and it takes about 30 minutes by car. But during the morning at rush hours, there is a lot of traffic jams. So it may take also 50 minutes or a whole hour to go there. So it's really annoying, and I find it, yes, it is the worst hour of the day because it's like I'm wasting my time in car by going there by car. But I remember that in the past I used to go to Florence to my university with by bus and by train, and it took a lot much more time. So I can't complain now that I have my own car and that I managed to be there in just half an hour. And but yes, I think it's really it's a really waste of time. So in the future, I would like to rent a house near the hospital, in order to wake up and I'm already there. I don't have to make a journey or to commute every day. This would be really useful. So
Excellent.
yeah.
So you ready for part 3? All right. So we've been talking about a journey, and we're now going to talk about hotels. So what things are important when someone is choosing which hotel to stay in?
Well, I think that one of the main thing to pay attention to is the location of the hotel, because if you book an hotel in the right location, for example, in the city center or near the main attractions of the city which you want to visit, it's really good and it's really convenient. For example, in Florence, if you book an hotel far away or in the outskirts, it's you get crazy to go to the main cathedral, yes, and to the city center.
Okay. Why do some people dislike staying in hotels?
Some people maybe don't like a formal environment. They like more simple accommodation, like hostel. For example, I know many young people that never book an hotel room, but always search for hostels and shared accommodation, yes, that are also cheaper.
And do you think staying in a 5-star hotel is a waste of money?
Yes, personally, I think that it's a waste of money because I mean, you just need a bed and something where to sleep for a night. So, I mean, all the other things are all commodities and luxury things, that something extra that you don't really need. For example, most rich people want to have I don't know, a person that carry their luggages, and but they can do that. I mean, so
So now let's talk about working in a hotel. Do you think a career in hotel management is a good career choice?
well, I think it's really stressful because you have to be there all the time, and it's your business. So if it goes wrong, you lose a lot of money. You have a great responsibility. So maybe it's not one of the smoothest career that one could choose. Yeah.
And how do you think working in a large luxury hotel would compare to working in a simpler hostel?
I think it would be more demanding to work in a luxurious hotel because you have to cope with very important people, sometimes celebrities, so they can suit you, and they can have a lot of claims to do, so you can get really in trouble, and you have to be really careful about the service that you offer. For example, famous football player sometimes do crazy things and claim for stupid things like a bad service that is not real, that is not true, and so many times people get in troubles for just because they have discussion with famous people that are really powerful. Yeah.
And which skills do you think are required to succeed as a hotel manager?
For me, the most important thing is kindness. Maybe that they have to hire people that can interact with the customers in a polite way. Because if a person feel to be served in a kind way, they are happy and they would not complain about anything. For example, usually when I go on holiday, if and I'm in an hotel, if they, mm, I mean, the staff could make mistakes, but if they are kind to me, I always pass on and I don't care. Yeah.
Good. So that's good advice for all careers, I think. Okay, so that's the end of the test. All right, so you can relax now. So before I give you your feedback, what I always like to do with students is, how did you feel about part one, part two, part three? Was it easy or difficult or stressful, or any parts that you were nervous about or anything like that?
Um, well, maybe part two, I would have liked to do better. I don't know. Sometimes because I have 2 minutes, so I have a lot of time and I can speak freely. So maybe I don't express everything fully. I don't know.
Hmm. Okay, good. So I think you did. I think you did really well. So what the question I always ask myself is, um, that you want to move to England. So if you and I were working together in England, would I be happy working with you? Because or would I be like, oh, Lucia can't speak English. Why did we hire Lucia? And I would never say that about you. I think you would have no problem working in a hospital in England and speaking to colleagues, speaking to patients. I understood the answer to every question. There was no answers where I was like, well, what does she mean by that? Or I didn't understand the pronunciation, or you didn't answer the question. You did a really good job with that. And I think that is the key question I ask myself when I'm thinking, will this person get a 7 or above? Overall, kind of holistically, if the person listening to you can understand everything that you're saying, both from a pronunciation point of view, a grammar and vocabulary, and a fluency and coherence point of view, then overall you should do really well. Then what we like to do is drill down and look in detail at the 4 marking criteria, and see if there are any possibilities for any problems that might occur that could cause you to get lower than a 7, because you need a 7 or above, right? So if we start off with pronunciation, for a lot of Italian students that I work with, pronunciation is normally the one main issue that they have, and you don't have many of the typical Italian errors that we would hear all the time. And the question that every examiner asks themselves when they're thinking, is this person at a 6 or a 7 or an 8, is, can I understand what you're saying? What is the clarity like of the words that you're saying? And I understood 100% of the words. So it's impossible for me to give you below a 7 for pronunciation if I understand 100% of the words, because it's not about accent, and it's not about using high level pronunciation features for 7 or above, really. Um, for a 7 anyway, it is, can I understand what you're saying? 100%. Now, if you want a band 8 or a band 9, we need to think about the higher level pronunciation features such as intonation, sentence stress, word stress, connected speech, and you do a pretty good job with them as well. Now, you wouldn't think that you're a native English speaker or anything like that. So it wouldn't be up at a band 8 or a band 9, but it would definitely not be below a 7 for pronunciation. So that is really, really good. In terms of fluency and coherence, let's separate out fluency and coherence, because they're two really separate things, even though they're in the same category. Coherence, you answered every question, and there was no problem understanding what you were talking about for each question. And there was enough development for part 1, part 2, and part 3. So part 1, you're looking for quite short answers, just answer the question and then give a little bit more detail. That's what you did for every question. So part 1, no problem. Part 2, could you speak for up to 2 minutes about that topic? Yeah, no problem. You weren't having to, stop and really think about what you were doing. And you spoke fluently for the 2 minutes. Part 3, there was one question that wasn't as developed as it could have been, but you would not be judged on the answer to one question. The examiner will look at the totality of your performance. So part 3 is, in my opinion, the most difficult part. If you get one question in part 3 or two questions that you just are, the skills for a hotel manager, I'm a doctor. What do I know about that? Don't worry. As long as you attempt the question and you answer it, explain it, maybe follow it up with an example if you can think of it, that's enough development. So in terms of coherence, overall, very, very good. Fluency, you speak without noticeable effort. You don't pause that often. You don't repeat yourself. You do pause and hesitate a little bit at times, but it's what I would refer to as a natural pausing, a natural hesitation. When you are speaking Italian, you probably pause and hesitate. When I'm speaking English, I certainly do. I think that a lot of people think that to get a high score in fluency, it means no pausing, no hesitation, perfect. That's not what it means. It means, are you speaking without unnatural hesitation and unnatural? And you do that sometimes just to quickly think, but that's totally fine. It's not like you're pausing to think of grammar, think of vocabulary. You do that a tiny bit, but not much. So uh, for fluency and coherence, I think you're at a band 7 level as well. To get up to a band 8 or 9, you probably, once we help you move to England and you're working and living in England for 6 months a year, you'll start to just speak a lot more fluently. You won't have to think at all, and that will come naturally. There's nothing that we can really do in the next couple of weeks to dramatically improve your fluency, and it's at the required level just yet, and just now. The only thing that might be a problem on test day is maybe stress, nerves, things like that. Again, imagine you're speaking to a friend in a coffee shop. Don't worry about, oh, this is a very scary examiner. Just, imagine you're having a normal conversation. And if you do that, you'll be fine. And then also, if you get stuck on one question, what can happen to students is they answer one question with poor fluency maybe, or get stuck and don't know how to answer it, and they go down in performance. Like the rest of their performance is really not that good. Remember, you're being judged on the whole test, not one question, not one answer to one question. Also, if you make you did self-correct sometimes when you made a little grammar mistake from time to time, or a little vocabulary mistake, let it go. You don't need perfect grammar, perfect vocabulary to get a 7 or above. So so fluency and coherence, I think, solid, very solid 7, and pronunciation, very solid 7s as well. So you're halfway there to get. So for vocabulary, the question I would ask myself, or two questions: were you able to discuss those topics easily? Did you have enough vocabulary, a wide enough range of vocabulary to discuss those different topics? So we talked about your career, your home, your mobile phone, a journey, hotels, careers in hotels. You do have enough vocabulary to discuss those topics. You have enough topic specific vocabulary. You weren't getting stuck because you didn't know the correct words to talk about. So I think you're at a band 7 for vocabulary there. You're not above a 7 because you weren't really using enough really topic specific vocabulary for, more advanced topic specific vocabulary for each thing. But I think for someone like you, if you try to push yourself to really think about very advanced vocabulary, and I'm talking like band 9 level vocabulary, that will lower your fluency, and it will also cause you to make more vocabulary mistakes. So I think the best advice for you would be just continue to have confidence in the vocabulary that you have and use it naturally, and don't take too many risks on test day. And I think that you'll do quite well in vocabulary. The area that I'm not worried about it, but it's the only area where I think that there is a possibility that if you made too many mistakes, it could bring you down to a 6, and that's grammar. You do, for example, countable, uncountable nouns. There's a few errors in there, a few preposition errors in there that I noted down. But overall, I would say that these are infrequent errors and there's no serious errors. So if there were serious errors, like errors that stopped me understanding what you were saying, then I would say there's a big risk that you're going to get a 6. And you need to really work on these. There were no errors where, for example, you said do a journey, is a lot of traffic lights instead of more simpler luggages. These are mistakes, but it doesn't stop me understanding what you say. Whether you say luggage or luggages, I know what you mean. I know that you mean suitcases. Like it's not a big deal. So again, could we help you avoid these little mistakes in a week? Probably not. You at your level of English, you're going to continue to make these little small errors, and it would only really be a problem if they were in every sentence. So, or like it was very frequent. That would maybe cause a little bit of a communication problem. But for you, it's every 3 or 4 sentences you'll get a little error when it comes to countable, uncountable nouns or prepositions or tenses, tiny mistakes, and they're infrequent. So I'd say that you're at a 7 for grammar as well. But on test day, there is a possibility that you would be really nervous and really stressed out, and you could make more mistakes than normal, but I don't think that you will. So that overall, I think you're a very solid 7. And the one area that I would work on would be grammar. And what I would, my little boy's home, so you might hear him shouting in the background. What you might hear, or what you could do to improve your grammar, would be to get yourself some practice tests, record yourself doing them on your phone and then listen back, because I often find that with these small grammar errors, it's about awareness, because you're speaking and thinking and you're not really thinking about the errors that you're making. But then when you listen back to it, and you can listen back to this video as well, of course, once you have that awareness, you're like, oh, luggages, no, luggage, it's there. So and then you'll be able to improve things. So but part one was good. Part two was good. Part three. One little thing that I would say, you do follow the formula in part three of answer the question, explain it, give an example, but you're always saying, for example, for example, for example. You can use more informal ways of you can use, for example, you can use for instance, but you can also say like, or such as, or, so not in a very formulaic, repeating the same thing again and again and again. So does that all make sense?
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for me about that?
No. Yeah, no. I know grammar mistakes are really silly. I know that thing. So maybe, yes, recording myself would be useful.
Yeah.
Yes, I will try
I
this.
mean, I would give you different advice if you had 6 weeks or 2 months or 3 months. And then I would say, let's work on countable, uncountable nouns. Let's work on tenses. Let's work on this. But for you who wants to do your test next week, I would say, you're not going to improve those things in a week. It's just about raising your awareness and trying to minimize them as much as possible. But, to go back to the example, like if we were working together in a hospital, I wouldn't say to you, if you said the patient has brought luggages with them, I wouldn't be like, what do you mean? I don't understand you. I would be, oh yeah, I understand what that means. So there's a big difference between grammar errors, which stop me understanding what you mean, and then small minor errors that don't stop me understanding you. Like at the end of the day, the IELTS test is a communications test, and those little mistakes don't affect communication that much. It would only be if you made them over and over and over again, and 3 times in every sentence or something like that. So you confident about doing the test and getting the score that you need?
Yes, I will try.
Don't try, do. Well, thank you so much for doing this, and if you do have any questions in the future before your test, just let me know. And what I would suggest is, getting as much practice in as possible before your test, and the days leading up to your test, try and do as much in English as possible. I know maybe your parents don't speak English, but but maybe not speaking it to your parents, but try and if you're watching TV, watch an English movie instead of an Italian movie. If you're listening to the news, listen in English instead of Italian. If if you have the chance to write in English, speak in English, do that too. So that will help you incrementally, and just sort of, it's very difficult to on test day go from 100% Italian to 100% English. So if you kind of build up to it, but kind of like warming up before a football game, you don't want to go in immediately cold. You want to warm up to that, so.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Lucia,
Yeah,
good luck.
thank you.
Thank you so much.